Hello, party people, and welcome to a special Friday episode of SJU. Joe said we wouldn't be back until Tuesday, but what the hell does Joe know? Nothing. That's what Joe knows. I'm here, Spencer J. Gilbert. I'm here with Lon. I'm here with Eric. You know what time it is. It's time to talk about some news, because we actually got some. We're talking about the Spider-Man 3 casting and the implications that'll have on the multiverse, what could go right, what could go horribly, horribly wrong. And then we're talking about a new movie that we'll be able to watch in the comfort of our own homes, Pixar's Soul. A film that I'm told is about why life is worth living, but for kids. Eric, tell us more about that later. And then keep putting those questions in the chat, because at the end of all the episodes, we will respond to what you guys have to say. But starting off, this news is, a little old, but so are we. THR says that Benedict Cumberbatch will be back as Doctor Strange in the new upcoming Spider-Man movie. He will be in the mentor role, previously occupied by RDJ's Iron Man and Sam Jackson's Nick Fury. Because how old's Tom Holland now? Does he still need a mentor?
I was going to say, isn't he like 30? Like you're done apprenticing. Just be Spider-Man now. You're ready.
Regardless,
3 movies. But Iron Man was already like, I'm done. Like Batman only ever gets 3 movies and then he like retires.
Tom Holland is 24, by the way.
Tom Holland, he's a 24-year-old man. You're out of college. Like you should be doing.
I think they really wanted to like Potter these movies and have it be like taking him through high school. It's just they're coming out spread apart, and yeah, it's a little weird to have Tom Holland still be like, teach me about the world.
He's been Spider-Man as long as Stephen Strange has been magic at this point, right? It's not that they're peers in the world of superheroing.
Totally. And speaking of strange, things can and will get strange and weird when he's around. This could explain why Jamie Foxx is returning, not in the blue paint as himself or as Electro. We'll see. Actually, if he was as Jamie Foxx, that'd be incredible.
It's like an Ocean's 12 thing.
Yeah, that guy looks just like Jamie Foxx.
He dies in Pixar's Soul and pops back up in the MCU.
Ooh, this is big crossover. We didn't even expect this.
Yeah. But Spider-Man 3 is shooting this month in Atlanta. I'm sure they've got it on lockdown in some type of bubble. Maybe Tyler Perry's lending them the compound or something. So
I mean, he's got a mask on. Spider-Man already has a mask.
That's true.
Yes.
So they've got a script clearly, and they've got they're going to be in production shortly. So we are committed to this. I guess first reactions. You excited to see Doctor Strange in the next Spider-Man movie and play a prominent role? Yay or nay?
I definitely enjoyed like having them bounce off each other in Infinity War. It's a fun dynamic. I am a little concerned about, I really like these Spider-Man movies. On the other hand, it's a, fair criticism that both the villains were because of Tony Stark and that they're not really letting this character exist on his own. So I hope Doctor Strange's role, THR was like, it's a mentor role, but I hope they're overstating that because I'm sure they haven't read the script. Because I don't want it to be like, oh, he just takes that slot Tony left. Let Spider-Man kind of do his own thing, as we were joking about, both because Tom Holland is a grown-ass man, even if he's playing a teenager, but also just because he's well-established now. We've seen Spider-Man in several MCU movies. So, yeah, it doesn't feel like he needs a character that's a mentor. I hope it's more just them bouncing off each other, and Doctor Strange is there a little bit, not, like, overwhelming the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense that the multiverse is like here in the MCU. It's like the natural storytelling progression. Like, all right, well, we've been to space, we've done time travel. Like, alt dimensions is next on the the Poochie scale or whatever. So, like, I get that, but I don't know. What's weird to me is that we're taking over these characters' movies to establish this story. Like, I hope we don't get into an Age of Ultron type situation where half the movie is now going to have to be spent like laying the groundwork and setting up the foundation for the next phase. And that we really do get to focus on like Spider-Man because he's a central character that we want to see get his own stories and his own adventures. So
yeah, but isn't this looking back, like not even looking back that far, but is this now just the Marvel movie MO? Like Thor Ragnarok was really a Thor and Hulk movie. Homecoming was really a Spider-Man and Iron Man movie.
Right.
Captain Marvel was a Captain Marvel and Nick Fury movie. Like there seems to always be now a second hero in every one of these. Like they've gone away from the solo movie.
And I mean, I think that part makes sense to me. I don't mind that. It's especially when you could do like a Thor Ragnarok, where like, yes, it's Thor and Hulk, but they're really on their own adventure. It's not just table setting for other adventures.
Yeah.
And I think so far the MCU's done a pretty good job of this. I don't mean to knock them on it. I'm just hoping that this Spider-Man movie still gets to be a Spider-Man movie and not just like, oh no, we've opened the multiverse and now there's all of this going on that's going to have far-reaching impact.
Well, yeah, I think it seems like they're doing like, we're still getting like Shang-Chi is getting his own movie that as far as we know, has no prominent role for another character, but it feels like they're doing the origin and then they're kind of sending them off into these team up things. But I do get it because people do love sort of seeing these characters bounce off each other.
Yeah, you want your toys to play together. You can't all be off on your own side.
Well, and I do, to what Eric was saying, I think they did a really good job of making, they don't have a ton of screen time together, but making Spidey and Strange like a fun combo. So that it's already like tantalizing. Like we want to see more with these two in particular. Kind of like Thor and Hulk, I think.
I mean, what could Doctor Strange teach Spider-Man if not magic?
Well, they both do the same. They make the same hand gestures. So it's this versus this. So they're close. They're right there.
Great point. But yeah, so the multiverse. What is it? What's happening? Clearly, this is going to be where Marvel's heading, not just because of throwing Doctor Strange in this movie, but you've got WandaVision seemingly messing with reality. Doctor Strange's sequel is called The Multiverse of Madness. There's a Loki series, even though he is dead for the 11th time, seeming to indicate there might be some kind of multi-Loki world that we're living in. And even on the DC side, they're doing Flashpoint, they're doing Elseworlds, they're doing Marvel What Ifs. Things are getting real, fractalized, all at once. What do you guys think about everything going multiverse pretty hard over this next phase?
I mean, I as a lifelong comic geek, it's fun and exciting for me. It's also just strange, no pun intended, just to see, the multiverse be a thing that everyone knows about. But it's also weird to have everyone know about Rocket Raccoon. That's the power of these things. I will say that when Strange was announced for this movie, I felt a little like, yes, that my crazy Twitter feed after Jamie Foxx was announced for Spider-Man, I was like, okay, this has to be a multiverse thing. And I bet it's going to feed into Doctor Strange too. So then when they're like, oh, Doctor Strange is in Spider-Man, I'm like, okay, that all comes together. It's, I think it's super fun, and I think that we've seen them do a good job of, I think on a previous episode we talked about how even with the Crisis crossover for DC TV, they've introduced this idea more and more into the Spider-Verse, introduced it more and more to the mainstream, so that audiences are kind of prepped for it in a way that several years ago they would have been confused more. It still risks going too convoluted. There's a very fine line there between when is it too much, when is it kind of overwhelming. But for now, the comic book geek in me is like, yeah, this is great. Bring it all on.
It is interesting to me that for so much of the explosion of comic book inspired movies and superhero movies, the thing that people have liked is like continuity. It's like we're hearing one story told over 20 plus movies. And it's not that the multiverse like breaks that entirely, but it is kind of the opposite direction. Like what the multiverse promises is like, forget continuity. This character from this movie and this character from this timeline and this character from this thing, they can all hang out, like regardless of their origins and backstories and all the drama that has led up to this moment. So it is kind of like, are we tired of continuity? Like, is this a rejection of continuity, or are they going to have to somehow like bring all of these threads together so that not only is there dimension hopping, but it's still like dramatically and emotionally and thematically one story? Like that's a really hard line to walk, I think, in some ways.
Yeah, and I got to feel like this was born of storytelling considerations and just like practical considerations, because on a storytelling aspect, you've told the Infinity Saga. It has been one long overarching story starring more or less the same 6 core characters, and you've told their story, and it's like you can't keep throwing Thor and Iron Man out there, especially because those actors aren't going to be doing it forever. Some of them are dead, some of them are old in universe. And then, again, on the practical side of things, it's like contracts are up. You need to sign new characters. You need to start new franchises. You can't just keep milking the same cow and hoping that the same stuff is going to come out. So
it's just also like this trend started in what, like 89 with Batman. So we're generationally it makes sense. Like this genre has been around long enough that we have enough backstory to be nostalgic for that it makes sense to do a multiverse. So you could start to pull in like how Flashpoint's bringing in Michael Keaton's Batman, and like there's enough of now the interest isn't just who are we going to cast as X character. Now it's like, oh, we could bring back Paul Giamatti's Rhino. Remember him?
Yes,
You know,
don't
like
tease me.
Yeah.
I also
Where's
think
Where's that announcement?
But it's interesting. I'm so fascinated by the minutia of the Sony and Marvel of it all, because yes, they announced Doctor Strange 2 with that Multiverse of Madness title before Sony and Marvel even made a new deal. In fact, it was shortly after that when we heard that everything fell apart. Then they mended fences. But I keep going back to the press release when they announced the new deal. And Kevin Feige's quote, and press releases are very thought about and dissected before they send them out. Kevin Feige's quote specifically mentioned how Spider-Man happens to be the only hero with the superpower to cross cinematic universes, and how Sony will continue to develop their own Spider-Verse, and you never know what surprises the future might hold. So it seems like with Spider-Man specifically, part of this whole thing is that Sony was like, we need to make sure we're supported here with what we're doing. And it almost seems like Marvel agreed at a certain point, we'll kind of give you that stamp of approval as they continue to want to develop all the characters that legally they have the right to on in the movie side.
That's interesting. So you think that this plot, the introduction of this kind of plot device of the multiverse is to justify rival studios owning, rights to Spider-Man?
I think part of it is. I think that is like a little bit of a winking nod to the fact that Sony has this character and might, the deal, again, we don't know how long they're going to keep re-upping this deal. And there's a certain point where it might end and Tom Holland just continues as Spider-Man and he doesn't cross over, which is what almost happened last year. But maybe this is trying to make it so that's okay in a different way, make it acceptable for the audience, in a different way. So I just think there must be so many meanings about that. And I keep going back to Feige's quote because the fact that it was in the press release and acknowledging it just seems like they're doing something very purposeful.
Now, how long is it before they say just like F it and you see a Marvel DC crossover? 10 years?
10 to 15.
They've done it in the comics.
Yeah. It's bound to eventually have somebody powerful enough will get the right meeting and it'll, like Feige and Johns will figure it out.
When it completely burns out, right? It's almost like the ace in the hole. Like if these movies, and they will, right? It's the nature of the beast. The Western was the king of Hollywood until it wasn't. And in 10 to 15 years, if people are really played out on this and these movies are not performing anymore, that's when they go, all right, we need a poster with Batman and Spider-Man and Captain America on it and Superman. And that's when those meetings start to happen.
We had actually some interesting things coming in the chat before I forget. Zeno Hour writes, Marisu writes, bring back Willem Dafoe, which I wholeheartedly support.
Yes.
And bring back, is it Tobey Maguire's Venom? No, not Tobey Maguire.
No, it'd be Topher Grace.
Topher Grace, excuse me, I misspoke. Bring back Topher Grace's Venom. That's my request.
My request, by the way, is Ursula the neighbor from the Raimi movies, because she deserved better. And I was joking with you guys before we started shooting, but it's true. Dylan Baker needs to get to be the Lizard. They were setting him up for an entire trilogy, and the dude never got to be the Lizard. So
I'll tell you the one I want, and I tweeted about this yesterday, and the actor himself liked my tweet, so he's in. Vincent D'Onofrio needs to come over from Netflix as Kingpin,
yes, please,
and join this Spider-Man universe. This to me seems so obvious. It's like, well, just that you've got a multiverse. Just do it. What are you waiting for?
Yeah, they built in like a 2 or 3 year moratorium on them, being able to do something like that. But it's got to be up soon.
It's got to be up soon, and it's like you don't have a king. It's not like he would be taking some other place, or like there is no established Kingpin in the MCU. Like the stage is perfectly.
They killed
set.
Claw. They keep killing all the cool criminals.
Right,
and it's funny. I was thinking about this because I'm like, then there could be a line of dialogue if they want, where they're like, hey, there's another universe, and it's just like us, the MCU, except there's this other group of heroes, and the snap never happened. because that's pretty much where things really diverge.
And all the fights happen in warehouses and hallways.
Lots of hallways.
It's just like our world.
If you look at blueprints, there's a lot more hallways, but otherwise very similar.
There's this big hole in the ground.
But above ground, it looks like us. Yeah.
Also, Xenar brings up something cool that I didn't know about, is Doctor Strange is the person who makes the public forget Peter Parker's identity after Civil War in the comics. So he could kind of reverse that and bring everything back to a square.
That makes a lot of sense.
That does.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Thank you guys for watching this far. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we're back, which won't be this Monday. We have the holiday off, but we will see you Tuesday for Honest Trailers commentary and some SJUs after that. Which brings us to story number 2. Guys, we're getting a new movie. Not in theaters, in the comfort of our own homes.
I thought those were dead.
Well, yeah, and not in the rotting husk of a theater full of feral cats, but actually in my living room full of feral cats. It's Pixar's Soul. And on Christmas, we get a little Christmas present. After the joy of Christmas wears off, we can watch Soul and sob into our presents. This is at no additional charge. How cool is that?
Yeah.
And also, sound business decision? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. Are you guys surprised by this?
The no charge is surprising because even though you could, again, we don't have exact numbers. There's a lot of speculation. So, okay, say Mulan didn't work for them or it was too expensive. Not enough people did it. You still think that they might try $20. Like, might try something with a movie that was meant to be a major Pixar release. Like, this was a tentpole release for them. Maybe not on the scale of a Mulan, but still pretty big. So yeah, I'm surprised by the nobody. Because again, is it going to bring new subscribers to Disney Plus? The only way this movie makes money now, besides merchandise, is if it brings new subscribers. And I don't know if it will or not, because again, it's in new IP, which is great. Pixar does that. That's wonderful. But yeah, I'm surprised by the no upcharge on it.
I mean, or retain subscribers. Keeps you from canceling because you haven't seen anything, and also make it an attractive Christmas gift. Like, hey, I got you Disney Plus for Christmas.
We are at about the time when a lot of people's first year of Disney Plus will expire, so you do need to start thinking about how are we retaining? Are we going to get people to sign up just on the promise of Marvel shows and Mando seasons to come? Or do we need to put... I think there has been some concern. There was just an activist investor who wrote a post about an open letter about it this week, that there's just not enough original content on Disney Plus. Like, the perception is that we're still waiting on so many of these things we've been promised, and it's like a little thin other than, Hamilton and paying for Mulan and like the archive stuff and Mando. So I think this may be less about we can make our money back with new subscribers and more about overcoming the perception that there's not enough good original stuff on Disney Plus, at least to tide them over until we get Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki and WandaVision and Mando Season 2 and some of this other stuff.
That's why actually I'm surprised. It's interesting though, because they very recently once again said WandaVision is coming this year. The presumption being it'll debut right after Mandalorian Season 2 ends in December, right? Because they don't have enough that they can keep 2 such big shows going at the same time.
Right. And
Christmas Day is a fair guess for when WandaVision would premiere, because it's a Friday, which is when they usually put their big stuff out. So now I'm like, okay, that's weird. Is WandaVision going to debut the same day? Because they don't have that much big stuff, it's interesting if they drop both of them, but maybe they're just like, hey, everyone's home anyway, and Christmas more than ever, so let's give them a bunch of bright and shiny stuff,
Yeah, I mean, 11 a.m. on Christmas Day, once everybody's finished their presents and is like winding down, that every household in America with kids is going to put this on, right?
Yeah,
I think
it's
going to have crazy numbers the first few days it's up.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. I mean, in that classic Pixar way. Eric, you just wrote an article on on Fandom. Pixar's Soul ponders why life is worth living.
Yes.
Anything to tell us from that?
2 things. Well, 2 main things I'll tell you. Besides, check out the article so a couple weeks ago there was a press event for this online, and got to see the first 35 minutes, and I think they're great. I loved it. It's cool emotion. It's very trippy visually, that in a way that surprised me, and I really dug. Left me wanting more. But it's interesting, this decision. I think we are really seeing everything in real time. We've talked about this before, right? Like, why didn't they charge for Hamilton? They did charge for Mulan. These decisions are being made quickly because this press thing was 2 weeks ago. And at the time, I do not believe Pete Docter, the director who did Monsters, Inc. and Inside Out, I don't think he was faking it when he was like, this movie was made to be seen in theaters. Like, I don't think they'd made this decision till we're hearing now, like this week. So we're seeing things just changing very quickly. But I really liked what I saw of the movie. And I do have that sadness it won't be theatrical, even though right now I wouldn't feel safe going to a theater. It's just that, like, oh, that's too bad. This would have been a cool, and let's, even say, like, hey, like they were really touting the fact that it's like Pixar's first movie with an African-American lead character, and there's all these certain things, and then it's like, now it's kind of being released in this strange circumstance. But all that being said, liked what I saw, and I'm just sort of fascinated by these meetings that must be happening where they're like, what are we going to do? It almost sounds like a coin flip, Do we hold this for more months? Or do we just put it out? And obviously they made a decision that's...
Yeah, it seems like they're kind of pushing all their chips in for December. If it's WandaVision, the end of Mandalorian, Soul, and that's when Mulan will go free to stream.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
So it's
I think they are like, spend your holidays with us, guys.
Yeah. I mean, that does make sense. It's like a big marketing push while everybody's, off and like just streaming for a week or two is like make our case for the next year. Why you need to keep Disney Plus. Can I just say that, considering the times, I know these movies are made way in advance. I think Pixar needs to take the, movies about like death and deep introspection and like put them on the shelf and make some cute bug stuff or things are really hard. Can we do talking toys and what if?
Well, they question why life's worth living all the time. What if I don't trust any Pixar movie.
Went on an adventure to the garage. Like, who knows what would happen? Like, I'd love a few of those before we get back to like, what's it like when the fear and the joy in your brain have a fight? Like, that's every day. That's every day.
I mean, it's impressive, right? That like they do these things and kids like them and probably don't quite process fully what it is till later, but they're in this strange run. I mean, going back to Coco, great movie, but all about death and the afterlife. Like, they're like, kind of like, they're doing it a lot. They're like,
I need a break in between.
We are going to make kids ponder their mortality.
I want to see cars that act like people, or I want to see a bee date a human woman.
Yeah, like I need bunnies to go to space before we get to the next life and death thing.
Yeah. Speaking of life and death and VOD stuff, Patty Jenkins has shut down the Wonder Woman 1984 to VOD thing emphatically. I know I had wondered if Patty Jenkins had said anything on the last show. She said something. She
did.
Direct to streaming is not even being discussed. We are still 100% behind the theatrical experience for Wonder Woman 1984. Release date Christmas? Is that like again putting the cards on the table? Is Disney really taking a shot at Warner Brothers by putting Soul on Disney Plus the same day Wonder Woman's supposedly coming out? It's not going to come out then, right?
That's if Wonder Woman does stick to that, then yes, Disney's kind of being a-holes because they're like, hey, you don't have to risk your life. You can just stay home and watch a big, nice Pixar movie. It will move again. Again, I realized several months ago, I was one of the people saying, there's no way Mulan is going to go straight to Disney Plus, and then they did. So everything keeps changing. I still think the last thing to fall will be the big superhero movies, right? If Wonder Woman or Black Widow or Eternals, if one of these movies, that would be wow, we really have just decided like we just can't do anything else. So right now, it seems like Warner Brothers, with Tenet and now Wonder Woman, like they've decided these are the big movies. These ones are being saved for theaters.
Yeah.
I don't think Christmas Day is going to happen.
I don't know if you guys saw the Reuters interview with Patty Jenkins. So she tweeted like, we're not even talking about this. It's going to come out theaters. But she also did an interview with Reuters this week where she basically sounded pretty Nolan-y, where it was like, look, the theatrical experience is important. We have to preserve it. This is a line that once we cross it, you can't go back. Like once we start moving all these movies to streaming, that's it. It's over. And so, yeah, I think she's probably also putting some pressure behind the scenes like, no, this one has to go to theaters. And I think that relationship with Warner Brothers might be important enough that she has some actual sway.
Interesting. Yeah. And that's, like you said, pulling a Nolan, because he was able to, you felt like the pressure was coming from his end more so than Warner Brothers. He was able to kind of strong arm them into releasing Tenet. So yeah, wow. We might have Wonder Woman 1984 in theaters on Christmas for what theaters remain. Good luck. I wish them well.
Yeah. Drive-in? I'll go to the drive-in.
Yeah, I'll see you at the drive-in. Anyways, those are our two big stories today that we wanted to talk about. But what do you guys want to talk about? Let's get some questions going in the chat. Ask us anything. Truly, we will respond. Just Meduardo, I don't know, writes, with this multiverse looking more possible for the MCU, which actor from the Netflix Marvel shows would you like to see continue their role? For me, it's Punisher or Daredevil. I mean, Lon, you called it. It's Kingpin, right? He's like.
I mean, I would love to also see Punisher. Like, I thought he killed it in that role, and like that was awesome, and like he'd be great too. But yeah, my number one pick would definitely be D'Onofrio's Kingpin.
I think that's my number one as well. Charlie Cox's Daredevil is great as too, and it's funny because there's two key relationships that Spider-Man has in the comics they've never been able to do in the films, which is his friendships with Johnny Storm, Human Torch, and with Daredevil. They both are like really interesting kind of dynamics. But I don't know if the Charlie Cox Daredevil is the right Daredevil to establish that dynamic with Spider. Even though I loved him, I'd be curious about it. But yeah, Kingpin would be my number one, just because he was perfect, and I think he is so menacing, and it'd be cool energy to kind of bounce off the Tom Holland Spider-Man.
I will also say, if they hadn't killed off Mahershala Ali on Luke Cage, I would also be okay with putting it.
Yeah.
They should not have done that,
but they did halfway through the season. Spoiler.
Arceus, I don't know. The Lord of Creation writes, what's your favorite post-credit sequel bait? Is it there's gonna be carnage? Well, you might have known from my background how excited I am for Spider-Man to have a weird conversation with Woody Harrelson and Tom Hardy. Man, the three of them in a film together, that's like peanut butter, chocolate, and tuna fish. I just can't wait for how weird that's gonna get. And great sequel bait. Mine is actually the Super Mario Brothers movie where the two princesses show up with guns and just say, "We gotta go back." They don't. They never will.
I mean, there's certainly the fun of ones that never happen, like your Green Lantern, which is now getting HBO Max series, or Masters of the Universe. I mean, but if I'm talking genuine, I will say Iron Man, just because it was just so unfathomable. Like, to have, Samuel L. Jackson walk on screen as Nick Fury and mention the word Avenger, and be like, holy crap. Also, that was when they were, there were rumors about that, but then they didn't put that scene with any of the screenings. So that was like opening night audiences were the first to see it and actually have it confirmed. So that was really cool. I just remember being in the Cinerama Dome and people freaking out. And so I'll hold that dear to my heart still.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it Amazing Spider-Man 2 where they had that really weird one that was trying to set up Sinister Six, and it was like incredibly like
that was the entire movie.
Well, but it was like the guy in the trench coat, and he's walking down the hallway, and it's like the Vulture costume is behind him, and it's like, oh, this is going to be Sinister Six, and then nothing ever happened from any of it. I always like that.
All the uniforms in the same lab were just hanging on the wall.
I always like that, the post-credit scene, or like the scene that's obviously there to set up a sequel that then never happened, and it just becomes this weird old artifact of like where they thought this was going to go. I always think that's cool.
Probably like the Mummy too. All the scenes with Russell Crowe is the
like the creature from the Black Lagoon's hand is in the lab, and
and Green Lantern, which I mentioned for a second, but it's such a weird one because literally the end of that movie is like Sinestro being like, "You're okay." And then they're like, post-credit scene, I'm evil. Like, we just gotta, we're gonna just race to this now. Okay.
This is a fun one. Thomas Fitch writes, if the MCU had a crossover with any non-superhero IP, what would you want to see show up in the MCU? A little Fast and Furious, maybe? A little Dom in the gang?
Mrs. Maisel?
But wait, did you said non-superhero, so I don't think Dom Toretto counts. Ethan Hunt too, I would say would be a good one.
Yeah, John Wick.
But like they're already basically superheroes, so I like where Eric's head is at. Like go for real.
Larry David has Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yes, Seinfeld in the MCU.
Now we're talking.
Please make that happen. Michael Parker asks, what actor do you think was the most wasted in a comic book movie? Who did they... I mean, Marvel does this all the time.
I kind of have already given my answer here, but I will do it again. Paul Giamatti as the Rhino.
He just didn't get enough screen time. I think that it was a great use of Giamatti.
Beautiful. I just need a lot more. I need a whole movie. I need like a Joker standalone movie where it's just from his perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the MCU does this all the time with like Glenn Close in like Guardians of the Galaxy and like Annette Bening in Captain Marvel, where they're just they cast these incredible actors and a lot of times the villains too. And they just don't give him much to do. Like Lee Pace, he's a great actor.
It's to hold on to that huge hammer.
and then there's that weird thing
Cool
where
ass
there's
hammer.
Oh, my real answer is Oscar Isaac as Apocalypse. Oh my god!
Oh god, yeah.
Wow.
See,
What a waste.
There's two versions. There's two versions of this, right? There's a great actor in a role that's just not written well, but still has a lot of screen time, which is what like Oscar Isaac. But then there's also the really good actor in a role that was clearly in one version of the script, or maybe early versions of the movie before they edited it down, had a bigger role, and now they're just kind of there. Amazing Spider-Man 2 gives you so much, including Felicity Jones playing a character that was supposed to be Black Cat, like Felicity, but she's like barely in the movie. They don't do anything with her. And then I've been watching Ted Lasso recently, and Juno Tempo's in that, and she's great. And I was like, oh yeah, she's in Dark Knight Rises as like the young teenage girl that Catwoman is like friends with, but she's like in it for 2 minutes. And at some point, it was clear that character was probably significant in some way, and then that got written out, and yet she's still in the movie for just no reason. She's like, oh, okay, I'm here, bye. So there's a few like that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I feel like Jeremy Irons was such a great choice for Alfred, and then he doesn't really get to do much with it in either of the DC
well, the Snyder
films.
Cut might fix all your problems.
Hopefully the Snyder Cut comes along and fixes all of my problems.
I'm talking about life too, not with
fixes all of my problems, like all of them in an overall general way. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Jeremy's Iron. All right, and final question from Jamie Garcia. With the push for diversity throughout genre entertainment, why have there not been mainstream luchador films?
I mean, are we not counting Nacho Libre? We're not counting Nacho Libre. There is also a luchador scene in the 2019 Hellboy.
Wow, I missed that.
And
I don't know how you missed that.
In another what Eric's been watching on streaming lately tangent, I've been finally watching Young Justice, and so I just met their version of Bane, voiced by Danny Trejo, who is like much more like the comic books, so they kind of give him a painted version of the mask. Right. But obviously, Tom Hardy's Bane had no luchador touches. So maybe they can do in the upteenth version of Batman, maybe in the Matt Reeves version of Batman, we get a Bane that's luchador-y.
Yeah. Well, Jamie, you're saying that why have there been more mainstream luchador films? I would love to hear about the best luchador films because I didn't know that was really a genre.
I have to feel like in Mexico, there probably are big mainstream luchador films, and it's really just that it hasn't crossed over into American cinema. So a shame. A real
like
shame.
Most things I don't know much. It's like Nacho Libre and Strong Bad for me are the two most notable luchadors in my life.
I think he's wearing the mask, but I don't know if Strong Bad actually gets into the ring very much.
We'll see.
It's more a fashion choice.
This has been fun. Thanks for hanging out with me this Friday, Lon, Eric. Be well. Read Eric's article on Fandom. Maybe we'll put that link somewhere in the description.
I think it's in the description. Who knows? Ryan. Yeah. Thank you.
Look at us.
And we will see you guys after the weekend back here on Tuesday. Thanks so much for watching. See you later.
Happy weekend.